these deviations that we get above both short-term and longer-term moving averages is hard to maintain. We talked about stretching a rubber band in one direction. So when you stretch the rubber band as far as you can in one direction, in other words, these deviations, the markets are going to correct back to those support levels at some point. Here's what you need to know before the bell. So let's talk about where we ended up on Friday. Again, markets doing just fine. We've had this nice little rally here this month, particularly over the last few weeks as we entered into earnings season. Something that we talked about, we said, one thing that may hold up this market is earnings. We lowered estimates enough that companies are going to have a big beat rate on earnings, and of course that's exactly what's going to happen. And this has been, and so we've had this nice rally in the markets. The thing to note is, and again, there's nothing wrong with this in the short term, and it can certainly stay this way for longer than you think, but these deviations that we get above both short-term and longer-term moving averages is hard to maintain. We talked about stretching a rubber band in one direction. So when you stretch the rubber band as far as you can in one direction, in other words, these deviations, the markets are going to correct back to those support levels at some point. And again, if you take a look as an example, when you get these kind of deviations from the 20-day moving average, as an example, you always get a correction back towards that 20-day moving average at some point. And so you're going to get this correctional process that comes along, give you a little bit better entry point. Again, these aren't deep corrections by any stretch of the imagination, but as we get into February tends to be one of the weaker trading months of the year. So once we kind of get through the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, kind of get through the first couple of days of February, may expect to see a little bit of a correction in February. That'd be absolutely normal. And again, that would resolve some of these bigger deviations that you get from these moving averages. Again, currently, there's not much to worry about here. We're on a buy signal, which is going to suggest that downside risk is somewhat limited, but markets are back to very overbought conditions, and that's going to probably set up again a bit of this correction, work off some of that overbought condition, and allow for a better entry point. So if you need to increase equity exposure for the markets right now, if you're underweight, have a lot of cash, etc., that would be a better opportunity than trying to chase markets here. Now, one of the interesting things coming up is this week and next week, we're going to start hearing from a lot of the big mega cap companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, these companies. Interestingly enough, more often than not, when they report earnings, good, bad, or indifferent, their stocks tend to decline. And so you could, if you're looking to make an entry into some of those companies, the odds are more often than not, on an odds basis, that they typically sell off on earnings, give you a better entry point, and then they kind of rally back after that. So again, just something to kind of pay attention to as we get into earnings this season, but something is going to trigger a bit of a correction in the markets, and we'll come back down and we'll retest at least the 20-day, if not the 50-day moving average in the market. So again, the markets are extended. Be careful adding money here. You'll get a better opportunity, but I know it's hard, right? When markets are just kind of going up every day, it's like, oh man, I'm missing out, and I want to jump in, but that's typically not the best thing to do. Just be patient. You'll get an opportunity. And again, we're talking about the overall major market. There's individual stocks that are already correcting, sitting on support. So, I mean, if you're buying individual companies, always look at, kind of the technical setup for entry points for each individual company. There's always opportunities out there. You just have to look around and find them. But that's what you need to know before the bell this morning.